A millionaire walked into a nursing home to make a donation and found his father who disappeared 30 years ago. The man who abandoned his family when he was just 18 was sitting right there in room 307. But why did he really leave? The truth involves blackmail fraud and a secret that will shock you. Quick question, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Now let's dive into this incredible story. The rain drummed against the windshield of Garrett Whitmore's Tesla as he sat in the parking lot of Evergreen Care residence, his fingers tightening around the steering wheel. He'd made this quarterly pilgrimage for 3 years now, a calculated PR move disguised as charity, all part of maintaining West Coast Construction's pristine public image. Today felt different, though. Something in the gray Seattle morning carried an electric charge he couldn't explain. Just another photo op, he muttered, grabbing the oversized check from the passenger seat. The amount, $5,000, was substantial, enough to generate positive press, but small enough not to dent his company's quarterly profits. Everything in Garrett's life operated within such carefully calculated parameters. As he strode through the automatic doors, his Italian leather shoes clicked against the polished floor with military precision. The familiar antiseptic smell mixed with something floral, lavender perhaps, filled his nostrils. Margaret Chen, the facility's director, appeared as if summoned by his arrival, her practiced smile already in place. "Mr. Whitmore, always a pleasure," she said, extending her hand. "The residents are gathered in the common room for the presentation." "Actually," Garrett said, surprising himself, "I'd like to tour the facility first, see where our donations are." "Making a difference." Margaret's smile flickered momentarily. "Of course, though I should mention we have several new residents settling in today. Some areas might be busy." They walked through corridors painted in soothing pastels past rooms where elderly residents watched television or worked on puzzles. Garrett's mind wandered to spreadsheets and upcoming board meetings until they reached the 3rd floor. "This is our memory care unit," Margaret explained. "Many of our residents here require specialized—" A crash from room 307 interrupted. "Her?" Through the open door, Garrett saw an elderly man bent over scattered photographs, his hands trembling as he tried to gather them. "Oh, Mr. Whitmore, I mean Harlan, let me help you with those," a young nurse said, rushing to assist. The name hit Garrett like a physical blow. His breath caught as he stepped closer to the doorway, his eyes fixed on the old man's profile. The jawline, though softened by age, was unmistakable. The way he held his shoulders, even in his diminished state, echoed a posture Garrett had spent 30 years trying to forget. "Dad." The word escaped before he could stop it, barely a whisper. The old man looked up, his clouded eyes searching Garrett's face without recognition. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" Garrett's world tilted. Harlan Whitmore, the man who had walked out on 3 children and a wife 30 years ago, leaving them drowning in debt and despair, sat before him in a faded cardigan, looking lost and fragile. "Mr. Whitmore," Margaret touched his arm gently. "Are you all right?" Garrett blinked, forcing his CEO mask back into place. "Yes, I thought he looked familiar. My mistake." But as they continued the tour, Garrett's mind reeled. His father was here. After 3 decades of absence, after all the nights his mother Nadine had cried herself to sleep, after all the sacrifices, his father was living in the very nursing home Garrett had been supporting. Back in the common room, Garrett delivered his presentation on autopilot, his eyes constantly drifting to the doorway, half expecting his father to appear. When the ceremony ended, he pulled Margaret aside. "The man in room 307, Harlan Whitmore. How long has he been here?" "About 6 months," she replied. "He was found living alone in a small apartment in Tacoma. No family contacts, minimal possessions. His memory, it comes and goes." Garrett's throat tightened. "I see. Thank you." As he walked back to his car, the rain had intensified, matching the storm building inside him. He sat in the driver's seat, staring at his hands that had built an empire from nothing, hands that had held his mother's as she died, still wondering why her husband had abandoned them. His phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. "Board meeting at 2, Vancouver Harbor project needs your final approval." Garrett typed a response, Cancel my afternoon. Family emergency. He didn't know what he was going to do, but he knew he couldn't. Drive away. Not this time. Not from the ghost who had haunted his entire adult life. As he stepped back into the rain, heading toward the nursing home entrance once more, a memory surfaced, his mother's voice weak but determined on her deathbed. Promise me you'll find it in your heart to forgive Garrett, not for him but for yourself. He'd made that promise. Now fate was calling him to keep it. 3 days passed before Garrett returned to Evergreen Care, this time without a check or cameras. He'd spent those days in a haze, mechanically attending meetings while his mind churned with questions that had festered for 30 years. His sisters, Bryn and Meredith, remained oblivious to his discovery. He wasn't ready to reopen their wounds yet. "I'd like to volunteer," he told Margaret, who raised an eyebrow at his request. "That's unexpected. Most of our donors prefer to maintain a professional distance." "I have some free time," Garrett lied, knowing his schedule was packed tighter than a subway car at rush hour. "Besides, I should understand where our money goes." Margaret's skepticism melted into cautious approval. "We can always use help. Can you start today?" Our activities coordinator called in sick. Within an hour, Garrett found himself wearing a volunteer badge and pushing a cart of art supplies through the memory care unit. His heart hammered as he approached room 307. Harlan sat by the window staring at the rain-soaked parking lot with vacant eyes. Up close, Garrett could see how time had carved deep lines into his father's face, how his once powerful frame had shrunk. The man who had loomed so large in his nightmares looked small, almost fragile. "Mr. Whitmore," Garrett kept his voice neutral, "would you like to join us for art therapy?" Harlan turned, studying Garrett's face with unexpected intensity. "You look familiar. Have we met?" "I'm new here," Garrett said, his throat tight. "Just started volunteering." "Ah." Harlan's attention drifted back to the window. "I used to know someone who had eyes like yours. My son. Haven't seen him in a very long time." The casual admission hit Garrett like a punch. He gripped the cart handle until his knuckles whitened. "Would you like to tell me about him?" Harlan's laugh was bitter. "Not much to tell. I failed him, failed all of them. Sometimes the best thing a man can do is remove himself from the equation." "Maybe he'd see it differently now," Garrett said, carefully. "No." Harlan's voice hardened with surprising clarity. "Some things can't be forgiven. Some choices echo forever." They sat in silence until a nurse appeared. "Time for your medication, Harlan." As Garrett wheeled his cart away, he heard his father murmur, "Garrett had eyes like that. Green with gold flecks. His mother's eyes." The next 2 weeks fell into a pattern. Garrett rearranged his schedule, delegating meetings and pushing deadlines, all to spend afternoons at Evergreen Care. He became James, the dependable volunteer, who played checkers with Harlan, helped him with jigsaw puzzles, and listened to his fragmented stories. Some days Harlan's mind was sharp as broken glass. He'd talk about the construction business, about building houses with his bare hands, about dreams that crumbled like poorly mixed concrete. Other days he barely recognized his own reflection. "I had a family once," Harlan said during one of his clearer moments, arranging checker pieces with trembling fingers. "A beautiful wife, 3 children. I loved them more than life itself." "What happened?" Garrett asked, though the question scraped his throat raw. Harlan's face darkened. "I happened. Made choices that seemed right at the time, thought I was protecting them. Instead, I destroyed everything." "From what?" "From the truth. From consequences that weren't mine to bear." Harlan moved. A checker piece then seemed to forget the game entirely. "You know what's funny? I used to watch them from afar sometimes. Saw Garrett graduate from community college, saw him build his business. Wanted to tell him how proud I was, but what right? Did I have Garrett's chest constricted? All those years of struggle, of wondering if his father ever thought about them, and he'd been watching from the shadows. "Maybe you should have tried," Garrett said softly. "No." Harlan's voice turned fierce. "They were better off without me. Nadine raised them right. Strong, ethical, successful. Everything I wasn't." That evening, Garrett sat in his penthouse office, staring at the Seattle skyline. His assistant had left 3 urgent messages about the Vancouver Harbor project, and Donovan Kirkwood, his mentor and biggest investor, had called twice. But all Garrett could think about was the pain in his father's eyes, the weight of secrets that seemed to bend his spine. His phone rang. Meredith. "Hey, stranger," his youngest sister said. "Bryn and I are worried. You've been MIA lately. Everything okay?" Garrett closed his eyes. How could he explain? How could he tell them their father was alive, broken, and 15? Minutes away. "Just busy with a new project," he said. "The Vancouver thing, Donovan mentioned it at the charity gala. Said you're about to make history." Donovan. The man who'd stepped in when their father left, who'd guided Garrett's career, who'd become the father figure he desperately needed. The irony tasted bitter. "Something like that," Garrett said. "Listen, Mayor, I need to go. But let's have dinner soon, all three of us." "You're scaring me, big brother. You sure you're okay?" "I will be," he said, hoping it wasn't a lie. After hanging up, Garrett made a decision. Tomorrow he'd push harder. Whatever had driven his father away, whatever secrets had kept him in exile, for 30 years Garrett would uncover them. He owed it to his mother's memory, to his sisters, to himself, and maybe, just maybe, to the broken old man who still saw his mother's eyes when he looked at him. The breakthrough came on a Thursday afternoon when Seattle's notorious rain had given way to unexpected sunshine. Garrett arrived at Evergreen Care to find Harlan in an agitated state, pacing his room and muttering about papers and the basement. "They're not safe there," Harlan insisted, grabbing Garrett's arm with surprising strength. "Donovan will find them. He always finds everything." The name sent a chill down Garrett's spine. Donovan Kirkwood, his mentor, his biggest investor, the man who'd shaped his career. Why was his father talking about Donovan? What papers? Garrett asked gently, guiding Harlan to his chair. "Evidence, proof. I hid them before I left in the old house on Maple Street, behind the loose brick in the basement wall." Harlan's eyes cleared for a moment, focusing on Garrett with startling intensity. "You have his eyes, you know, Nadine's eyes." Garrett's breath caught. "Whose eyes?" "My son's. Garrett's. He must be, 48 now, 49. Harlan's voice cracked. "I wonder if he ever thinks about me. Probably hates me, I would. I'm sure he—" Garrett's voice failed him. He cleared his throat. "I'm sure he'd want to understand why you left." Harlan's laugh was bitter as burnt coffee. "Understand? How do you explain to your children that you chose to destroy their lives to save them? How do you tell them that every birthday you missed, every baseball game, every graduation, it was all because you loved them too much to let them pay for your mistakes?" "What mistakes?" But Harlan's moment of clarity was already fading. His eyes grew distant, and he began humming an old lullaby Garrett remembered from childhood, the same one their mother used to sing. That evening, Garrett drove to the old neighborhood where he'd grown up. Maple Street looked smaller than he remembered, the houses pressed together, like books on an overcrowded shelf. Their old home stood at the corner, its blue paint faded to gray, the porch sagging slightly. The current owners, a young couple with twin toddlers, were surprisingly accommodating. When Garrett explained he'd grown up there and wanted to see the basement for sentimental reasons, a generous donation to their home renovation fund didn't hurt. The basement smelled of mold and forgotten summers. Garrett ran his hands along the brick wall, his fingers searching for looseness his father had described. Near the old water heater, a brick shifted under his touch. Behind it, wrapped in plastic and yellowed with age, was a manila envelope. Back in his car, Garrett's hands shook as he opened it. Inside were contracts, bank statements, and correspondence, all related to Whitmore and Kirkwood Construction, the company his father had run with Donovan before disappearing. As Garrett read, a story emerged that made his blood run cold. Systematic fraud, forged signatures, money diverted to offshore accounts. And at the center of it all, Donovan Kirkwood's signature authorizing transfers that had drained the company dry. But the most damning document was a letter in Donovan's handwriting. "Harlan, you have 48 hours to disappear. Leave your family, leave the state, leave everything. If you don't, these documents will surface with your signature on them instead of mine. Your wife and children will be investigated, their lives destroyed. You know I have the connections to make. It happened, don't test me. This is mercy, take it. D." Garrett read the letter 3 times, his vision blurring. His mentor, the man who'd been like a father to him, had been the one who'd driven his actual father away. The man who'd comforted them after Harlan's disappearance, who'd helped pay for his mother's medical bills, who'd guided Garrett's career, he was the architect of their family's destruction. His phone rang. Donovan's name flashed on the screen. "Garrett, I've been trying to reach you. We need to finalize the Vancouver Harbor contracts tomorrow. This deal will make us both very rich men." Garrett stared at the documents spread across his passenger seat. "I've been busy with a family matter." "Family?" Donovan's laugh was warm, paternal. "You work too hard, son. Your family is right here. Your company, your legacy. That's what matters." "Is it?" Garrett's voice sounded strange to his own ears. "Of course. Listen, I'll see you tomorrow at 10. We'll sign those papers and celebrate properly. I'm proud of you, Garrett. You've become everything your father never was." The line went dead. Garrett sat in the darkening car, the weight of 30 years of lies pressing down on him. Tomorrow he was supposed to sign contracts for the biggest deal of his career with the man who'd destroyed his family. He looked at the old house one more time, remembering his mother working 2 jobs, his sisters growing up without a father, his own abandoned dreams of college. All because Donovan Kirkwood had chosen greed over friendship, manipulation over truth. His phone buzzed. A text from Bryn. "Dinner tomorrow night. Meredith says you've been acting weird. We're worried." Garrett typed back, "Yes. And I need to tell you both something important about Dad." He could imagine their faces when he revealed the truth, but they deserved to know. After 30 years of questions, of blame, of broken hearts, they all deserved the truth. As he drove away from Maple Street, the envelope of evidence beside him, Garrett made a decision. He wouldn't sign those contracts tomorrow. Instead, he'd confront the man who'd shaped his life by destroying his father's. The sun had set completely now, leaving Seattle wrapped in darkness. But for the first time in 30 years, Garrett felt like he could see clearly. The next morning, Garrett arrived at his office to find Donovan already there, sitting behind Garrett's desk, as if he owned it. Which Garrett realized with a sick feeling he practically did. "Early bird gets the worm," Donovan said, his silver hair perfectly styled, his smile shark-like. Ready to make history. Garrett set his briefcase down carefully, the evidence from the basement hidden inside. "We need to talk first. About the contracts, don't worry, my legal team went through every line. This Vancouver deal is airtight. By next year, West Coast Construction will be the biggest development firm on the Pacific Northwest." "It's not about the contracts." Garrett remained standing. "It's about my father." Donovan's smile flickered. "For just a moment. Your father, Garrett, he abandoned you 30 years ago. Why would you—" "I found him." The words hung in the air like suspended construction cranes. Donovan's face went through several emotions: surprise, calculation, and finally a careful neutrality. "Found him where?" "Evergreen Care Residence, the nursing home I've been funding. Ironic, isn't it?" Donovan stood slowly, his movements precise. "I see, and have you spoken with him? He doesn't recognize me. His memory comes and goes, but he remembers you, Donovan. He remembers Whitmore and Kirkwood Construction. He remembers why he left. The mind plays tricks as we age." Donovan said smoothly, "Your father was always unstable, that's why he abandoned." "No." Garrett opened his briefcase, pulling out the manila envelope. "He didn't abandon us. You forced him out. You threatened his family, my family, to cover up your fraud." Donovan's eyes fixed on the envelope. "Where did you get that? Does it matter?" "Garrett, listen to me." Donovan's voice took on the paternal tone that had guided Garrett for years. "Whatever you think you found, whatever your father told you, it's not the whole story. He was sick, paranoid. He created those documents to justify his cowardice. His signature isn't on these contracts, yours is. Signatures can be forged. Your father was quite skilled at—" "Stop." Garrett's voice cut through the lies. "Just stop. I've spent 3 decades hating him for leaving us. My mother died believing he didn't love us enough to stay. My sisters grew up thinking they weren't worth fighting for. And all that time you were there comforting us, mentoring me, playing the role of the father figure while knowing you were the reason he was gone." Donovan's mask finally cracked. His eyes hardened and the warmth drained from his face like water from a burst pipe. "Your father was weak. He had a choice: take the blame for necessary business decisions, or protect his family by leaving. He chose to run. I gave him that option out of friendship. Necessary business decisions, you mean fraud? I mean survival. The company was failing. I did what needed to be done to save it. Your father would have dragged us both down with his principles. His principles? Garrett's voice rose. He sacrificed everything to protect us from your crimes. And look how well that turned out, Donovan sneered. His family struggled, his wife worked herself to death, his children grew up damaged. If he'd simply cooperated, you all would have been wealthy, comfortable. Instead, he chose martyrdom. The office door burst open. Garrett's assistant, Sarah, looked flustered. I'm sorry, Mr. Whitmore, but there's an urgent call from Evergreen Care. It's about a resident, Harlan Whitmore. They said he's your father. Garrett's blood chilled. What's wrong? He's missing. They think he left the facility in his condition. Garrett was already moving, grabbing his coat. Donovan stepped in front of him. We're not done here, Garrett. Those contracts need to be signed today. Get out of my way. Think carefully. Donovan's voice turned ice cold. Your company, your reputation, your future. It all depends on this deal, on me. Don't throw it away for a ghost. Garrett pushed past him. My father isn't a ghost. He's a man you tried to destroy. And right now, he needs me. As he reached the door, Donovan called out, If you walk away from this deal, Garrett, you're walking away from everything we've built together. Garrett turned back 30 years of manipulation and lies crystallizing into a single moment of clarity. No, Donovan, I'm walking towards something you never understood, family. He left Donovan standing in the office surrounded by contracts that would never be signed and raced toward Evergreen Care. His phone rang constantly. Donovan, board members, investors. But Garrett ignored them all. His father was out there somewhere confused and alone. And for the first time in 30 years, Garrett had the chance to find him. Not as James the volunteer, but as the son he'd never stopped being. As he drove through Seattle's rain-slicked streets, a memory surfaced, his father teaching him to ride a bike, running alongside, promising he wouldn't let go. I've got you, Harlan had said. I won't let you fall. Now it was Garrett's turn to keep that promise. The search for Harlan had stretched into its third hour when help arrived from an unexpected source. Garrett stood in Evergreen Care's lobby, coordinating with police and organizing staff search parties, when a young nurse approached him. Mr. Whitmore, I'm Ainsley Chen. I work closely with your father. Garrett barely glanced at her, his attention focused on a map of the surrounding area. If you have any information about where he might go, the pier, Ainsley said firmly. He talks about it constantly. Pier 57. Something about watching the sunset with his children. The memory hit Garrett like a physical force. Sunday evenings. At the pier, all 5 of them sharing fish and chips while the sun painted the Puget Sound gold, before everything fell apart. You're sure? Ainsley nodded. He's mentioned it during every clear moment I've witnessed. It's his happiest memory. Something in her voice made Garrett look at her more closely. She was younger than most of the staff, mid-20s, with intelligent eyes that held an unusual intensity. I'll drive, she offered. You're in no state to navigate traffic. Normally Garrett would have refused, but something about her certainty made him hand over his keys. As they wove through Seattle's downtown traffic, Ainsley spoke. He talks about you, you know, not by name. He doesn't realize you're his son, but he talks about his boy who builds things. Says you got that from him. Garrett's throat tightened. What else does he say? That he made an impossible choice, that he's spent 30 years wondering if it was the right one. Ainsley's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He's lucid, more often than you might think. The guilt, it eats at him. How long have you worked at Evergreen? 6 months. Started right around when he arrived. Something in her tone made Garrett study her profile. That's quite a coincidence. Ainsley's jaw tightened, but she said nothing more until they reached the pier. The sun was beginning its descent, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. And there, sitting on a bench facing the water, was Harlan. He looked small and lost, his thin shoulders shaking. As they approached, Garrett could hear him talking to himself. Should have stayed. Should have fought. Nadine, I'm so sorry. Kids, I'm so sorry. Dad. The word escaped before Garrett could stop it. Harlan turned his tear-stained face, confused. James, what are you doing here? I'm not James, Garrett said softly, sitting beside his father. I'm Garrett, your son. Harlan blinked, studying Garrett's face as if seeing it for the first time. Recognition dawned slowly, like sunrise over water. Garrett, his voice broke. My boy. But how? I've been volunteering at Evergreen. I found you 3 weeks ago. I've been visiting you, trying to understand why you left. Harlan's face crumpled. Oh, God. Oh, my boy. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Garrett pulled his father into an embrace, feeling the old man's frail body shake with sobs. 30 years of anger and hurt melted away, replaced by something simpler, a son holding his broken father. I know about Donovan, Garrett whispered. I found the documents. I know why you left. Harlan pulled back, his eyes wide with fear. No, you can't. He'll destroy you. That's why I stayed away, to keep you safe. He can't hurt us anymore, Dad. I'm not the 18-year-old kid you left behind. I have resources, lawyers, evidence. We're going to expose what he did. But your company, he's your partner. I'd rather lose everything than continue building on a foundation of lies. Ainsley stood quietly nearby, watching the reunion with tears in her eyes. Something about her expression caught Garrett's attention. Why are you really here? He asked her. She took a shaky breath. Because I needed to see him, to understand him, to decide if I wanted him in my life. Harlan looked confused. I don't understand. Ainsley knelt in front of the bench, her eyes meeting Harlan's. My name is Ainsley Chen. My mother was Linda. Chen, you knew her in Portland about 25 years ago. The color drained from Harlan's face. Linda, but she never told me. She didn't know she was pregnant when you ended things. By the time she found out you'd disappeared completely, she raised me alone, told me my father was a good man who'd lost his way. Garrett stared between them, the truth clicking into place. You're my sister. Half-sister, Ainsley corrected softly. I've known about you all my life. Mom kept newspaper clippings, your business successes, Bryn's wedding announcement, Meredith's art exhibitions. She said you all had a right to live your lives without complications. Harlan reached out with trembling hands to touch Ainsley's face. A daughter. I have another daughter. Oh, Linda. Why didn't she... She tried to find you after Mom. A wife passed away. She thought maybe then, but you'd vanished completely. The three of them sat in silence as the sun continued its descent. The pier bustled with tourists and locals, but they might as well have been alone in the universe. Why work at Evergreen? Garrett asked finally. I'm a nurse. When I learned he was there, I transferred. I wanted to know him before it was too late. His memory's deteriorating. Some days he doesn't even know his own name. But you never told him who you were. Ainsley's smile was sad. I was afraid. What if he rejected me? What if he had known about me and chosen to stay away? It was easier to be just another nurse. Harlan grasped both their hands. I would never... If I had known... Oh God, how many lives did I ruin by trying to protect people? You didn't ruin our lives, Dad, Garrett said firmly. Donovan did, and it's time he faced the consequences. As if summoned by his name, Garrett's phone rang. Donovan. He answered on speaker. What do you want? You have 1 hour to reconsider. Donovan's voice was cold steel. Sign the Vancouver contracts or I'll pull every investor from your company. You'll be bankrupt by morning. Do what you have to do. Don't be foolish, Garrett. Think about your employees, your reputation. I am thinking about them. And about integrity, something you taught me nothing about. Your father is a sick old man feeding you fantasies. Don't destroy your future for his delusions. Garrett looked at his father, at his newly discovered sister, at the sunset painting the world in shades of hope. My father is the strongest man I know, and I'm proud to be his son. He hung up. Harlan squeezed his hand. You don't have to do this. Don't sacrifice everything for family. Garrett smiled. Dad, I spent 30 years building a life on the foundation of a lie. It's time to start over, the right way. Ainsley spoke up. We should get him back to Evergreen. It's getting cold. As they helped Harlan to the car, he stopped looking back at the sunset. I used to bring you all here. You'd argue over who got the last French fry. I always won, Garrett said. No. Ainsley smiled. According to Mom's stories, Bryn was the French fry champion. Harlan laughed, a real laugh free of pain for just a moment. We should all come back, all of us. Your sisters too. Garrett nodded. We will, Dad. I promise. As they drove back through the darkening city, Garrett's mind raced with plans. He needed to call his sisters, introduce them to Ainsley, prepare for Donovan's retaliation. But for now, in this moment, he was just a son driving his father home, with a sister he'd never known he had. The road ahead would be difficult. Donovan wouldn't go down without a fight. But Garrett had something now that all of Donovan's money and influence couldn't match. The truth and a family piecing itself back together. His phone buzzed with messages from panicked board members, but Garrett ignored them. Tomorrow would bring its battles. Tonight was for healing. Bryn and Meredith sat in stunned silence in Garrett's living room, the Seattle skyline glittering behind them like a cascade of fallen stars. The sisters had arrived expecting another lecture about diversifying their investment portfolios. Instead, they'd been hit with 30 years of shattered assumptions. He's alive, Bryn whispered, her wineglass forgotten in her hand. Dad's alive. Meredith, ever the artist, sat sketching frantically on a napkin, her way of processing shock. Her pencil moved in sharp, aggressive strokes. And living 15 minutes away, in a nursing home you've been funding. For 6 months, Garrett confirmed. 6 months. Bryn's voice cracked. You've known for 3 weeks and said nothing. I needed to understand why he left first. And now you do. Meredith's pencil stilled. Because of some documents in a basement. Garrett pulled out the manila envelope, spreading its contents across his glass coffee table. As his sisters read, their faces cycled through disbelief, anger, and finally a dawning horror. Donovan, Bryn breathed. Oh my God, he was at Mum's funeral. He held my hand while I cried. He walked me down the aisle at my wedding, Meredith added, her voice hollow. I asked him to since Dad. He's been playing us for 30 years, Garrett said, and tomorrow he's going to try to destroy everything I've built because I won't sign his contracts. Bryn, always the pragmatist despite her yoga studio career, leaned forward. What's your plan? First, I need you both to meet someone. Garrett took a breath. We have a sister. The silence that followed could have swallowed ships. What? Meredith's pencil snapped. Garrett explained about Ainsley. Their father's relationship after he fled the daughter he never knew existed, her quest to find him. By the end, Bryn was pacing while Meredith had started a fresh sketch. This is insane, Bryn muttered. Our entire lives have been built on lies. And now we have a sister who's been watching us from afar like some Victorian novel. She's not like that, Garrett said. She's family. You'll see when you meet her. When? Meredith asked. Tomorrow, at Evergreen. Dad's having one of his good days. He wants to see you both. Dad wants... Bryn stopped pacing. Does he even remember us? Some days? Better than others, but yes, he remembers. He's carried the guilt for 30 years. Meredith's latest sketch showed a man bent under an invisible weight, and Donovan just kept coming around, kept pretending to care. He needed to watch us, Garrett realized, to make sure Dad never tried to contact us, to maintain his image as the benevolent family friend. Bryn sank onto the couch. I named my daughter's middle name after him, Sophia Donovan Martinez. I thought he'd earned the honor. The 3 siblings sat with the weight of manipulated history. Outside, a ferry horn echoed across the sound. What happens to your company? Meredith asked finally. Donovan will pull the investors. Stock will plummet. I'll probably lose everything. Everything you built because of him, Bryn added. Exactly, which makes rebuilding without him that much more important. Meredith smiled, the first real smile since Garrett had started talking. Remember Mum's favorite saying, the Whitmores don't break... We rebuild, Bryn and Garrett finished in unison. So we rebuild, Bryn said, squaring her shoulders. All of us, together. Garrett felt something ease in his chest. You're... Not angry, I kept this from you. Oh, I'm furious, Bryn said. But I get it. It's too big to process. You needed time. Plus, Meredith added, you've always tried to protect us, even when we didn't need it. Especially then, Bryn laughed, but it turned into a sob. God, I've hated him for so long. Blamed him for everything. And all this time, Garrett pulled both sisters into an embrace. They stayed that way, a tangle of shared pain and dawning hope, until Meredith pulled back. We need a plan, she said. Donovan won't just target. Your company. He'll come after all of us. I know. Garrett moved to his desk, pulling out files. That's why I've spent the last week preparing. Moving assets, securing documents, consulting lawyers. Without signing anything Donovan could access, Bryn asked. I've been paranoid about contracts since finding those documents. Everything's been done through secondary firms. Meredith studied her brother. You've been planning this showdown. No, I've been preparing for it. There's a difference. Bryn's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and paled. Speaking of the devil, Donovan's texting me. Says he's worried about you, Garrett. Thinks you're having some kind of breakdown. He's positioning, Garrett said. Getting ready to paint me as unstable if I expose him. Let him try, Meredith said fiercely. He doesn't know we know, that's our advantage. Along with Dad's documents and Ainsley's testimony about why she sought him out, Garrett added. Will Dad testify in his condition? On his good days he's sharp as ever, and he wants to. He said he's tired of running from the truth. Bryn stood moving to the window. The city sprawled below them, lights twinkling like earthbound constellations. 30 years, she murmured. 30 years of lies. How do we even begin to process this? Together, Garrett said, the way we should have from the beginning. With our new sister, Meredith added thoughtfully. That's going to be interesting. She's nervous about meeting you, Garrett admitted. She's known about us her whole life. We're just learning about her. Nature versus nurture in action, Bryn mused. I wonder what traits she shares with us. You'll find out tomorrow, 10 a.m. at Evergreen. The sisters exchanged glances. We'll be there, Meredith said. As they prepared to leave, Bryn turned back. Garrett, what's Dad like now, really? Garrett considered. Broken, but not beaten. He's still Dad underneath the guilt and the years. Still tells terrible jokes. Still hums when he's thinking. Still has that way of looking at you like you're the most important person in the world. I'm scared, Bryn admitted. Me too, Meredith said. Me three, Garrett added. But isn't that what family is, being scared together? They laughed, shaky but real. After his sisters left, Garrett stood at his window, looking out at the city he'd conquered. By tomorrow night, his empire might be in ruins. But as he thought about the upcoming reunion, father, son, daughters, and the sister they'd never known, he realized something profound. He'd spent 30 years building walls of success to hide his abandonment wounds. Tomorrow those walls might crumble, but maybe what rose from the rubble would be worth more than anything money could buy. His phone buzzed. Another message from Donovan. Last chance, son, don't make me destroy you. Garrett typed back, I'm not your son, I never was. Then he turned off his phone and went to bed. Tomorrow would bring reunions and revelations, confrontations and consequences. Tonight, for the first time in 30 years, he'd sleep knowing the truth. Morning arrived, wrapped in Seattle's typical gray shroud, but inside Evergreen. Care's family room sunlight streamed through tall windows as the Whitmore siblings faced each other across invisible decades of separation. Harlan sat in his wheelchair between them, his eyes clear and focused, one of his increasingly rare good days. My girls, he whispered, studying Bryn and Meredith's faces like a cartographer mapping new continents. You've become such strong women. Bryn's carefully maintained composure cracked. You don't get to be proud of us, you weren't there. Bryn, Garrett warned. No. She stood, years of suppressed anger erupting. He left us. Mom worked herself to death. I raised Meredith while Garrett dropped out of college. And for what? To protect us? She laughed bitterly. We needed protection from your leaving, not because of it. Harlan absorbed each word like physical blows. You're right, every word. I made the wrong choice. Did you? Ainsley spoke from the doorway. She'd been hanging back, uncertain of her place in this reunion. You faced an impossible situation. Donovan would have destroyed all of them. Bryn whirled on her. And you are your sister, Ainsley said quietly. Half-sister, I know who you are. Garrett told us. But you'll forgive me if I don't immediately embrace the surprise sibling who's been stalking our family. I wasn't stalking. What would you call it, taking a job here specifically to watch our father keeping your identity secret? Meredith intervened. Bryn, stop. This isn't her fault. Isn't it? She's had her whole life to process this. We've had 12 hours. Ainsley straightened her shoulders, a gesture so reminiscent of Harlan that it stopped Bryn mid-rant. You're right. I've had advantages you didn't. I knew the truth about why he left. I knew about all of you. I had my mother's love without the wound of abandonment, and I'm sorry for that imbalance. The room fell silent. Harlan reached for Ainsley's hand, then Bryn's. Please, I know I have no right to ask anything of any of you, but don't let my failures poison your relationship with each other. Meredith moved first, approaching Ainsley with an artist's evaluating eye. You have his hands, she said finally, and Garrett's stubborn chin. Mom always said I got the Whitmore determination. Ainsley offered a tentative smile. What was she like? Meredith asked. Your mother. Kind. Fierce. She never spoke badly of Dad, even when I was angry about not having a father. She said he was fighting demons bigger than himself. While we fought to survive, Bryn muttered. But the venom was fading. Garrett's phone vibrated insistently. He glanced at it. 17 missed calls from board members, 43 from investors. The storm was building. It's starting, he said quietly. Harlan paled. Donovan. He's calling in every favor, every threat. By market close West Coast construction. We'll be worthless. Unless you sign his contracts, Bryn said. Which I won't. Even to save everything you've built. Garrett looked at his father. His sisters, this complicated family reassembling itself. Especially then. A knock interrupted them. Margaret Chen entered, looking unusually flustered. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a Mr. Kirkwood in the lobby. He's insistent about seeing Harlan. The room temperature seemed to drop. He knows, Ainsley said. He's known all along, Garrett realized. He's kept tabs on Dad just like he did us. He knew the moment I found him. Harlan's hands began to shake. I can't, not yet, I'm not ready. You don't have to see him, Meredith said firmly. Actually, Garrett stood, I think we all should, together. Are you insane? Bryn demanded. No, I'm done with shadows and secrets. Let him face all of us. Let him see what his manipulation created. Not a broken family, but a united one. Harlan looked up at his son with wonder. When did you become so brave? About 3 weeks ago. When I found my father. They moved as one, Garrett pushing Harlan's wheelchair, his sisters flanking them, Ainsley following. In the lobby, Donovan Kirkwood stood like a dark monument to 30 years of deception. His silver hair was perfectly styled, his suit immaculate, but his eyes were those of a cornered predator. Harlan, he said smoothly. You're looking, well, Donovan. Harlan's voice shook but held. And the whole family, how touching. Donovan's gaze swept over them, pausing on Ainsley. Though I don't believe I know this young lady. I'm Ainsley, Harlan's daughter. Donovan's composure cracked slightly. I see. Another secret surfaces. The only secrets here are yours, Garrett said. Secrets I've been nothing but open. With all of you. I've guided this family. You destroyed this family, Bryn interrupted. And then appointed yourself our savior. Donovan's mask slipped further. Destroyed, I made you all wealthy. Successful. Everything you have came from my guidance. Everything we lost came from your greed, Meredith countered. You ungrateful. Donovan caught himself forcing his paternal smile back into place. You don't understand the complexities of business. Your father does. Tell them, Harlan. Tell them about the choices that had to be made. Harlan straightened in his wheelchair. I'll tell them about the choice you made. To steal, to threaten, to destroy lives for profit. Dramatic words from a man who ran rather than face consequences. I ran to protect them from consequences that were yours to bear. Donovan's facade finally shattered completely. And look how well that worked out. Your wife dead, your children damaged, your family scattered, all because you were too weak to do what was necessary. Necessary. Garrett stepped forward. Fraud was necessary, blackmail was necessary, success was necessary at any cost. That's what separates winners from losers like your father. My father is worth 10 of you, Ainsley said quietly. Donovan laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Another, daughter defending daddy, how precious. Tell me, my dear, where was daddy when you were growing up? When you needed school supplies or birthday presents or someone to walk you down the aisle? He was protecting me from you, Ainsley shot back, even if he didn't know I existed. Protecting. That's what he calls abandonment. Donovan turned to Garrett. Last chance, sign the contract, salvage what you can, or watch everything burn. Let it burn, Garrett said simply. The words hung in the air like a lit fuse. Donovan's face contorted with rage. You'll regret this, all of you. I'll destroy every business, every connection, every opportunity you might ever have. You'll end up like him. He jabbed a finger at Harlan, broken and forgotten in some institution. We'll end up together, Meredith said. That's more than you'll have. Together, Donovan sneered. You think this happy reunion will last? Wait until the money runs out. Wait until reality sets in. Family is just a word people use to justify their weaknesses. Is that why you never had one? Bryn asked softly. The question hit like a precision strike. Donovan stepped back, his face cycling through emotions before settling on cold hatred. You've made your choice. Live with the consequences. He strode out, leaving silence in his wake. Then Harlan spoke, his voice stronger than it had been in years. He's wrong, you know, about family being weakness. It's the only real strength I've ever had. Even when I couldn't be with you, loving you kept me going. Bryn knelt beside the wheelchair, tears flowing freely. We're here now, Dad. All of us. All of us, Meredith echoed, taking his other hand. Ainsley hung back until Garrett pulled her into the circle. All of us, he repeated. They stood there bound by blood and pain, and the first fragile threads of healing. As outside the windows, Seattle moved on, oblivious to the small miracle occurring in a nursing home lobby. A family scattered by lies, finally coming home to truth. The war room was unconventional. Meredith's art studio canvases pushed aside to make space for laptops, legal documents, and what Bryn had dubbed their battle plans. Garrett hunched over financial projections, while his sisters organized 30 years of family documents. Ainsley sat with Harlan, helping him recall crucial dates and details. It's worse than I thought, Garrett announced, pulling off his reading glasses. Donovan's frozen credit lines called in loans and convinced 3 major investors to pull out. We'll be in default by Friday. How much to stay afloat? Bryn asked, ever practical. 12 million. Minimum. Meredith whistled low. I can liquidate. My gallery may be raised too. I've got another 2 in savings and investments, Bryn added. That leaves us 8 million short, Garrett calculated. And that's just to survive the month. What about the employees? Ainsley asked. How many people will this affect? 300 direct employees. Another 1,000 contractors and suppliers. The weight of responsibility settled over them, like concrete. Then Harlan spoke. The house in Bellevue. Everyone turned to stare at him. What house? Garrett asked. My grandmother's estate. I inherited it just before I left. I never sold it. Put it in a trust, paid the taxes anonymously. It's worth at least 15 million now. Dad, Bryn breathed. You've been sitting on 15 million while we struggled. I couldn't touch it. Donovan would have known, would have found a way to take it or use it against you. But now, he looked at Garrett. Now we fight back. There's more, Ainsley said quietly. She pulled out a manila folder. My mother kept records, photos, recordings. Recordings, Garrett leaned forward. She dated Donovan briefly. After Dad, she never trusted him, so she recorded their conversations, including one where he bragged about forcing Dad out. The room electrified. You have Donovan on tape admitting to the blackmail. Not in those exact words, but close enough. He talks about handling the Harlan situation and making sure the family never suspects the truth. Garrett's phone rang. He almost ignored it until he saw the caller ID Patricia Havisham, CEO of Pacific Partners and one of his biggest supporters. "Patricia," he answered on speaker, "I suppose you're calling to pull your funding too." "Actually," Patricia's crisp voice filled the room, "I'm calling to double it." Stunned silence. "I've known Donovan Kirkwood for 40 years, Patricia continued. "I've watched him destroy better people than you for lesser reasons. If you're finally standing up to him, you have my full support." "Patricia, he'll come after you too. Let him try. I'm 73 years old with more money than God and a grudge against bullies. Besides, I'm not the only one. Check your email." Garrett opened his laptop. His inbox was flooding with messages of support from clients, competitors, even former employees who'd left because of Donovan's influence. "Word travels fast in our industry," Patricia explained. "Donovan's made enemies over the years. Many of us have been waiting for someone with the courage to expose him." "How many?" Garrett asked. "Enough to form a consortium, enough to not just save your company but to build something better, without him." As Patricia outlined her plan, Meredith's phone chimed. She glanced at it and gasped. "The Seattle Times wants to run our story. Full exposé. They've been investigating Donovan for years but needed an insider source." "That's us now," Bryn said grimly. "The ultimate insiders." The day blurred into a frenzy of activity. Lawyers were consulted, statements prepared, evidence compiled. By evening, they'd assembled a formidable case against Donovan Kirkwood, but the emotional toll was evident. Harlan dozed in his wheelchair, exhausted by the effort of remembering. The siblings looked shell-shocked. "I need air," Bryn announced, stepping onto the studio's small balcony. Garrett joined her. The city sparkled below, deceptively peaceful. "You okay?" Bryn laughed shakily. "I hated him for 30 years, hated Dad. Built my entire identity around being the abandoned daughter who made it anyway. And now you have to rebuild that identity. We all do." She studied her. "Brother, how are you so calm your company's imploding? Because for the first time in my life I'm building something real, something clean, with my actual family, not the surrogate Donovan pretended to be." "The girls will need therapy," Bryn mused. "Finding out their Uncle Donovan is actually a villain from a bad movie. We'll all need therapy." They stood in comfortable silence until Meredith called them back inside. "Channel 5 wants an exclusive. Live interview. Tomorrow morning." Garrett shook his head. "Too soon." "We need to strike while Donovan's off balance," Harlan interrupted, more alert than he'd been all day. "He's using the same playbook he used 30 years ago. Isolation, intimidation, financial pressure. But this time, we have something I didn't." "What's that?" "Each other." Harlan looked around the room at his children. "He's fighting 5 Whitmores now, not one. And we have allies, truth, evidence. And really good lawyers," Ainsley added with a small smile. "So we do the interview?" Meredith asked. "We do everything," Garrett decided. "Interviews, depositions, full disclosure. We drag every secret into the light." "He'll escalate," Bryn warned. "Donovan doesn't lose gracefully." "Then neither do we," Harlan said firmly. "I've spent 30 years losing gracefully. I'm done." The determination in his voice galvanized them all. Plans were refined, strategies developed. Patricia Havisham's consortium grew as more business. Leaders reached out, tired of Donovan's tactics. Near midnight, as they prepared to leave, Ainsley pulled Garrett aside. "There's something else. Something I haven't told anyone." Garrett tensed. "What?" "Mom left me a letter, to be opened only if I ever met Dad. I read it last night. And she knew where Donovan hid his real books, the ones showing all his illegal dealings, not just with Dad, but with dozens of companies over the years." Garrett's pulse quickened. "Where?" "A safety deposit box, Bank of America, downtown branch. She had a key made before they broke up." "Do you still have it?" Ainsley pulled a small key from her pocket. Mom was nothing, if not thorough. Garrett stared at the key, a tiny piece of metal that might unlock 30 years of corruption. "First thing tomorrow," he decided. "Before the interview, we get those books. Together. Together. All of us. No more secrets. No more going it alone." As they rejoined the others, Garrett felt a shift in the air. They were still outnumbered, still facing a formidable enemy. But they were no longer victims of Donovan's manipulation. They were the Whitmores, broken once but rebuilding stronger. And tomorrow they'd show Donovan and the world what that meant. The night stretched ahead full of possibility and peril, but for the first time in 30 years they faced it as a family. "Mum would be proud," Meredith said suddenly. "She always was," Harlan replied softly. "Even when I gave her no reason to be." "She knew," Bryn said. "Somehow I think she always knew you didn't leave by choice." "She was smarter than all of us combined," Garrett agreed. "Then let's honor that," Ainsley suggested. "By being smart now. By finishing what Dad tried to start 30 years ago." They clasped hands in the center of the studio, father, son, daughters, and the sister they'd just found, united in purpose. Tomorrow would bring battles, but tonight they had each other. It was enough, it was everything. The Bank of America branch in downtown Seattle opened at 9. By 9:03, the Whitmore family stood in the vault anteroom, Ainsley's key trembling, slightly in her hand. Harlan was having one of his foggy mornings, but he'd insisted on coming, sensing the importance even through his confusion. "Box 4471, the bank manager confirmed, leading them deeper into the vault. The key turned with a soft click that seemed to echo 30 years of secrets. Inside the narrow metal box lay 3 leather-bound ledgers and a sealed envelope marked 4. "Linda, just in case," Ainsley's breath caught. "That's Mom's name." "He wrote to her," Garrett asked. "Let's find out somewhere private," Bryn suggested, eyeing the security cameras. Back at Meredith's studio, they spread the contents across her largest work table. The ledgers were meticulous, Donovan's private records detailing decades of fraud, bribery and manipulation. Names, dates, amounts, all in his distinctive handwriting. "My God," Garrett breathed, flipping through pages. "It's not just us. He's destroyed dozens of families. The Hendersons, remember them?" Meredith pointed to an entry. "Their construction company folded in 99. Donovan bought their assets for pennies. The Chens, the Washingtons, the Paters, all competitors who mysteriously went bankrupt right before Donovan expanded into their markets," Bryn added. Ainsley held the sealed envelope, her hands shaking. "Should I—" "It's yours," Harlan said gently, his moment of clarity piercing through the fog. "Though I don't remember writing it." Ainsley broke the seal, unfolding pages covered in Donovan's handwriting, not Harlan's. "Linda, if you're reading this, something's happened to me. Know that everything I told you about Harlan Whitmore was a lie. I destroyed him to protect my empire, and I'll destroy anyone else who threatens it, including you. Take this key. Take these books, disappear, or join the list of casualties in my success story. D." "He threatened her," Ainsley whispered. "That's why Mum left Seattle, why she never tried to contact any of you. She was terrified." The studio door burst open. Sarah Garrett's assistant stumbled in, face pale. "Turn on Channel 5 now." The television flickered to life, revealing Donovan at a press conference flanked by lawyers and PR specialists. "Regret to announce that Garrett Whitmore has suffered a complete mental breakdown. His recent erratic behavior, culminating in wild accusations against me, his mentor and closest family friend, indicates severe psychological distress. I've reluctantly filed for emergency conservatorship of West Coast Construction to protect shareholders and employees from his delusions." "He's claiming you're insane," Bryn gasped. "It's his nuclear option," Garrett realized. "If he can't control me financially, he'll do it legally." The phone rang. Patricia Havisham. "Garrett, he's filed injunctions against anyone supporting you. Claims we're enabling mental illness. Half the consortium is being threatened with lawsuits. Let me guess, his golf buddies on the bench are fast-tracking everything." "Emergency. Hearing in 2 hours, Judge Morrison." "Morrison owes Donovan his appointment," Meredith said. "This is rigged." "Then we unrig it," Garrett decided. "Sarah, contact Channel 5. Tell them we have documents proving systematic fraud. Full exclusive if they broadcast live from the courthouse steps. The interview," Bryn started, "happens at the courthouse, with evidence. Make Donovan defend his lies in real time." "That's dangerous," Patricia warned through the phone. "He'll have security lawyers, every dirty trick, and we'll have the truth," Harlan interrupted, standing shakily. I've hidden from it for 30 years, no more. The family exchanged glances. This was it, their moment of truth. All of us, Ainsley asked. All of us, Garrett confirmed. Win or lose, we face it together. 2 hours later, they stood on the courthouse steps as news vans assembled and crowds gathered. Donovan's legal team occupied the upper steps like an army holding high ground. Ready, the Channel 5 reporter asked. Garrett looked at his family, his father leaning on a walker, but determined, his sisters flanking him protectively, Ainsley holding the ledgers like shields. Ready? The cameras rolled. Garrett Whitmore, the reporter began, Donovan Kirkwood claims you're suffering from delusions, that your accusations are documented fact. Garrett held up the first ledger. 30 years of fraud, all in Donovan's own handwriting, including the scheme that destroyed my father's reputation and tore our family apart. Donovan appeared at the courthouse entrance, his face a mask of concerned paternalism. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Garrett's creating forgeries involving his confused father in delusions. Then let's test that, Harlan called out, his voice carrying despite its frailty. You and me, Donovan. Tell these people what you did, what you threatened, what you stole. The crowd hushed. Donovan descended the steps, slowly, confidence radiating from every movement. Harlan, old friend, you're not well. Let me help you back, to the nursing home where you belong. I belong with my family, the one you tried to destroy. I saved your family, supported them after you abandoned. Liar! The word erupted from Bryn with 30 years of suppressed rage. You supported us, you controlled us, manipulated us, made us grateful for scraps while you stole our inheritance. Your father was a thief. No. Ainsley stepped forward. You were. And we have proof. Your own letter threatening my mother. Your books detailing the frauds. Your voice on recordings bragging about destroying competitors. The crowd stirred. Cameras swiveled between the two groups. Donovan's mask finally cracked. You know nothing, girl. You're not even really family. She's my daughter, Harlan said firmly. My blood, unlike you who pretended to be family, while poisoning us from within. I made you all rich. You made us broken, Meredith countered. But we're healing now, without you. Donovan's lawyers whispered urgently in his ear. His PR team gestured frantically at the cameras. This proves my point, Donovan attempted to recover. Mass delusion. They've infected each other with lies. Then let's examine the evidence. Judge Morrison's voice cut through the chaos. He stood at the courthouse entrance, having emerged unnoticed. In open court. Now. Donovan paled. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. So is filing emergency conservatorship papers based on falsified psychiatric evaluations. Morrison held up documents. Did you think I wouldn't verify your claims, Mr. Kirkwood, or discover you forged Dr. Peterson's signature? The crowd exploded in murmurs. Cameras zoomed in on Donovan's stricken face. I want full depositions, Morrison continued. All evidence submitted. This matter will be resolved today. Your Honor, one of Donovan's lawyers stepped forward. We need time to prepare. You've had 30 years, Morrison cut him off. Court convenes in 1 hour. As security ushered everyone inside, Garrett caught Donovan's arm. Why? He asked simply. We trusted you. Loved you. Why wasn't that enough? For a moment, something human flickered in Donovan's eyes. Regret, perhaps, or recognition of what he'd lost. Then it vanished, replaced by cold ambition. Love doesn't build empires, he said. No, Garrett replied sadly, but it builds families, and that's something you'll never have. Inside the courthouse, as lawyers prepared and evidence was submitted, the Whitmores sat together on a wooden bench. They were about to air 30 years of pain in public, to risk everything on truth prevailing over power. But they were together, and that Garrett realized had already won them the only victory that truly mattered. The bailiff called for order. The judge entered. The final battle for their family's future was about to begin. The courtroom crackled with tension as Judge Morrison reviewed the mountain of evidence. Donovan's legal team had demanded a closed hearing, but Morrison insisted on transparency. The overflow crowd in the gallery included journalists, business leaders, and employees whose livelihoods hung in the balance. Mr. Kirkwood, Morrison began, These ledgers appear to detail systematic fraud spanning 3 decades. Your response, Donovan's lead attorney Marcus Sheffield, stood smoothly. Your Honor, these are clearly fabrications created by a disturbed family seeking to blame their misfortunes on my client's success. We motion to dismiss. Motion denied. Miss Chen, please present the audio recordings. Ainsley's hands trembled as she connected her laptop to the courtroom's audio system. Her mother's voice, young and suspicious, filled the room. Tell me about Harlan Whitmore Donovan, the real story. Donovan's younger voice responded, arrogant and slightly drunk. Harlan weak, principled. Bad combination in business. I gave him a choice, disappear or watch his family destroyed by association with frauds he knew nothing about. Guess which one he chose? You threatened his children. I motivated him. There's a difference. Besides, they're better off. Look at them now. Struggling builds character. The recording continued each word, another nail in Donovan's carefully constructed image. The courtroom sat in stunned silence as he bragged about forged documents, threatened witnesses, and destroyed competitors. Your Honor, Sheffield scrambled. This recording lacks context. It could be edited, manipulated. Then let's provide context, Garrett stood. Dad, tell them about November 15th, 1994, the day Donovan gave you the ultimatum. Harlan rose unsteadily, Bryn supporting him. His voice started weak but grew stronger with each word. I discovered discrepancies in our books. Money disappearing, contracts altered. When I confronted Donovan, he showed me documents, forged contracts, with my signature, fake invoices, a trail of fraud that led directly to me. Except I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't stolen anything. Dementia, Sheffield interrupted. Classic false memories. I have the originals, Patricia Havisham announced, from the gallery. The real contracts from that period. My company did business with Whitmore and Kirkwood. We can prove the signatures were forged. Morrison nodded. Present them. As Patricia's lawyers hurried forward with briefcases, Donovan's composure finally shattered. He stood abruptly, face flushed. Enough. Yes, I forged signatures. Yes, I moved money. You want to know why? Because I was saving a failing company. Harlan was too soft, too ethical to make hard decisions. I did what needed to be done. By destroying him, Meredith called out. By making 3 children grow up without their father. Collateral damage, Donovan snarled. Success requires sacrifice. Other people's sacrifice, Garrett corrected. Never yours. Because I'm smarter, stronger, I built an empire while you all wallowed in self-pity. You built nothing, Harlan said quietly. You stole. You manipulated. You destroyed. But you never built anything real. Donovan laughed bitterly. Real? What's real? Love, family. Those are just words people use to justify weakness. No, a new voice spoke from the back of the courtroom. Eleanor Kirkwood, Donovan's ex-wife, walked forward. Those are words you never understood, which is why you'll die alone. Eleanor. Donovan's face went white. What are you doing here? Something I should have done years ago. Your Honor, I have. Additional evidence. Records of offshore accounts, hidden assets, bribes to city officials, all documented during our divorce proceedings but sealed by court order. I believe recent events warrant their release. Morrison leaned forward. On what grounds? Public interest and personal conscience. I stayed silent too long, watched him destroy too many families. No more. The courtroom erupted as Eleanor's lawyers presented box after box of documentation. The scope of Donovan's corruption was staggering. Not just the Whitmores, but dozens of families, hundreds of employees, entire communities damaged by his greed. Your Honor, Sheffield made one last attempt. We request a recess to review. Denied. Mr. Kirkwood, do you have anything to say in your defense? Donovan stood alone now, his lawyers having quietly distanced themselves. He looked around the courtroom, at the Whitmores united against him, at former allies turned witnesses, at the cameras recording his downfall. Defense? He laughed high and sharp. I don't defend success. I don't apologize for winning. Every single person in this room would have done the same if they had the courage. I just had the balls to actually do it. No, Garrett said, standing to face his former mentor. "You had the emptiness, the void where love should be. That's why you couldn't stand to see our family happy, why you had to tear us apart. You were never happy. Your father was weak, your mother was overwhelmed. They were in love," Bryn interrupted. "Something you couldn't understand or tolerate." "Love," Donovan's voice dripped contempt. "Love is what poor people tell themselves to feel better about failing." A murmur ran through the gallery. Even Donovan's remaining supporters looked uncomfortable. Morrison had heard enough. "Mr. Kirkwood, based on the evidence presented, I'm referring this matter to the District Attorney for Criminal Prosecution. Additionally, I'm granting immediate injunctive relief to West Coast Construction and ordering forensic accounting of all your business dealings. You can't, I can, and I am." Bailiff Mr. Kirkwood is to surrender his passport immediately. As court officers moved forward, Donovan made one last desperate play. "Garrett, think about what you're doing. I made you. Without me, you're nothing." Garrett looked at his family, his father finally free of 3 decades of guilt, his sisters standing strong beside him, Ainsley no longer hiding in shadows. Then he turned back to Donovan. "You're wrong. Without you, I'm finally everything I was meant to be. A son, a brother, a man who builds instead of destroys." "This isn't over," Donovan snarled, as officers led him away. "I'll fight this, You'll lose," Harlan said softly, "because you're fighting alone and we're not." The courtroom slowly emptied, but the Whitmores remained seated, processing the magnitude of what had just happened. 30 years of lies, unraveled in a single afternoon. "Is it really over?" Ainsley asked. "The legal part's just beginning," Garrett admitted, "but the family part, the secrets and lies and separation, yeah, that's over." Meredith pulled out her phone, showing a flood of messages. "The Seattle Times wants exclusive interviews. CNN is calling. The story's going viral." "Let them wait," Bryn decided. "Right now I think we all need food. And possibly therapy." "Definitely therapy," Garrett agreed. They left the courthouse together, stepping into unexpected sunshine. The media surrounded them immediately, but Patricia Havisham's security team had formed a protective corridor. "Mr. Whitmore, how does it feel to bring down the man who mentored you?" "Harlan, after 30 years, what's next?" "Is it true there's a secret daughter?" The questions came rapid-fire, but the Whitmores moved through them without answering. They'd said what needed to be said inside. Now it was time for something more important. "Fish and chips," Harlan said suddenly, "at the pier, like we used to." "Dad, you remember?" Bryn's eyes filled with tears. "More and more, the fog is lifting, probably won't last, but right now I remember everything. And I want fish and chips with my children. All my children." They made their way to Pike Place Market, then down to the pier. The same bench where Garrett had found Harlan weeks ago now held their entire reunited family. Seagulls circled hopefully as they shared fish and chips from paper cones. "Mom would have loved this," Meredith said. "She's here," Harlan touched his chest. "In all of us. In the way you stand up for truth and how you support each other, she's here." They sat in comfortable silence, watching ferries cross the Sound. The future held challenges: legal battles, company restructuring, family therapy, Harlan's declining memory. But for this moment, they were simply together. "What happens now?" Ainsley asked. "Now," Garrett smiled. "Now we do what the Whitmores do best. We rebuild together." As the sun set over the water, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, 5 hands reached for the last French fry. They laughed, fighting over it like children, like family, like home. 6 weeks after the courtroom showdown, West Coast Construction's headquarters buzzed with renewed energy. The forensic accountants had uncovered the full extent of Donovan's embezzlement, nearly $50 million siphoned over 3 decades. More importantly, they'd identified legitimate contracts and relationships that could be salvaged. Garrett stood before his assembled employees, the conference room packed beyond capacity. Beside him were his sisters and Ainsley. Harlan sat in the front row, having one of his increasingly rare clear days. "I won't sugarcoat this," Garrett began. "We're starting almost from scratch. Donovan's arrest has triggered lawsuits, contract cancellations, and a massive reputation hit. But He held up a thick folder. "We also have something we never had before. Truth, transparency, and a real family running a family business." "What about our jobs?" someone called from the back. Bryn stepped forward. "We're implementing an employee ownership program. 20% of the company will belong to the people who actually build it, all of you. No more secret deals, no more hidden agendas." Additionally, Meredith added, "we're establishing a community reinvestment fund. 10% of profits will go toward affordable housing and neighborhood restoration. We're going to build differently now." The room stirred with cautious optimism. Then Harlan stood wobbling slightly until Ainsley steadied him. "I owe you all an apology," he said, his voice carrying despite its frailty. "My cowardice 30 years ago led to this mess. I can't change the past, but I can promise you this. The Whitmores don't run anymore. We stand, we fight, and we take care of our own." Applause started slowly, then built to thunderous approval. After the meeting, as employees filed out with renewed purpose, the family gathered in Garrett's office. "That went better than expected," Bryn observed. "They want to believe," Garrett said. "They need to. Most of them have families to support." Speaking of family, Meredith pulled out her tablet. "I've been working on something." She showed them architectural renders, a modern community center with medical facilities, counseling services, and affordable housing units. "The Nadine Whitmore Center," she explained. "On the site of our old house on Maple Street, the current FAR. Owners are willing to sell. I thought, maybe it's time that address stood for healing instead of hurt." Silence greeted her proposal. Then Harlan spoke. "Your mother would have loved that. Practical help for struggling families. Yes, let's do it." "Can we afford it?" Ainsley asked. "With the recovered funds from Donovan's accounts, yes." Garrett confirmed. "It'll be tight but doable. Patricia's consortium is interested in backing it too." "There's one more thing," Bryn said hesitantly. "I've been talking to Eleanor Kirkwood, Donovan's ex-wife. She wants to help. Says she has resources that were hidden during their divorce, legitimate money he couldn't touch, nearly 30 million. "Blood money," Meredith said flatly. "No," Bryn corrected. "Her inheritance, her father's company, kept separate from Donovan's business. She wants to invest it in our community projects, a way to make amends." They debated for an hour before Harlan settled it. "Refusing help because of its associations with Donovan gives him power he doesn't deserve. Take the money. Do good with it. That's the best revenge." Over the following weeks, changes came rapidly. The Nadine Whitmore Center broke ground with surprising community support. Former competitors, seeing West Coast's new direction, began proposing partnerships. The media narrative shifted from scandal to redemption, but the biggest changes were personal. Harlan moved from evergreen care to a suite in Garrett's building with round-the-clock care but daily family interaction. His clear days became less frequent, but the fog seemed gentler now, less frightening when surrounded by loved ones. Bryn restructured her yoga studios into a non-profit offering free classes at the new center. "Healing the body to heal the mind," she explained. Her daughter Sophia had started calling Harlan Grandpa, bringing him drawings, and asking for stories about the old days. Meredith's art took a new direction, collaborative murals with community input, transforming blank walls into neighborhood histories. Her latest project covered the side of West Coast's headquarters, a massive family tree with roots that became houses' branches that held people's dreams. Ainsley officially joined the family business as head of community outreach bridging, her medical background with social services. She also began the delicate process of introducing Harlan to memories of her mother, Linda, helping him piece together a relationship he'd never known he'd lost. And Garrett. He learned to delegate to trust, to build with open hands instead of clenched fists. The company grew differently now, slower but stronger, with foundations in community rather than competition. One evening, as rain drummed against the office windows, the family gathered for their weekly dinner. It had become tradition. Thursday. Nights, no exceptions, rotating between their homes. "I have news," Harlan announced during dessert. "My lawyer called. Donovan took a plea deal, 25 years minimum. He'll die in prison." The table fell silent. Despite everything, the finality of it felt heavy. Do you feel vindicated? Ainsley asked gently. No, Harlan admitted. Just sad. Sad for the man he could have been, for the friendship we once had, for all the lives he damaged chasing something that was never real. Power, Garrett suggested. Control. He needed to control everything because he couldn't control himself, couldn't face his own emptiness. Harlan's eyes grew distant. I remember when we were young starting out. He had such dreams, we both did. Somewhere along the way his dreams became nightmares for everyone else. And now, Bryn asked. Now we dream better dreams. Harlan smiled, clarity returning. Together, Meredith raised her glass. 2 better dreams. To family, Bryn added. To second chances, Ainsley continued. To Mom, Garrett said, who somehow knew we'd find our way back to each other. To Nadine, Harlan finished. My love, my conscience, my heart, still guiding us home. They clinked glasses as the rain continued washing the city clean. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, therapy, sessions and business meetings, community hearings and family negotiations. Learning to be together after decades apart wasn't easy, but tonight they were simply the Whitmores, broken once rebuilt stronger. A family that had learned the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what really matters. And what mattered was this: 5 people around a table sharing stories and laughter, and the occasional argument bound by blood and choice, and the beautiful, messy, unbreakable bonds of love. Outside, Seattle sparkled in the rain, and inside, the Whitmores continued building their most important project, yet a future where truth illuminated every corner, where love was the strongest foundation, and where family meant showing up, staying close and never letting go again. The call came at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, jarring Garrett from sleep. The number was unfamiliar, the voice more so. Mr. Whitmore, this is Rebecca Santos from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. We need to talk about Donovan Kirkwood. Within hours, the family converged at Garrett's office, where Agent Santos and her team had set up a mobile command center. The news was staggering. Donovan's plea deal was in jeopardy. He'd offered information about a larger criminal network in exchange for reduced sentencing. He claims your father was more involved than previously revealed, Santos explained, her dark eyes studying their reactions. Says he has evidence of Harlan's willing participation in early schemes. That's impossible, Bryn protested. Dad discovered the fraud. That's why Donovan forced him out. According to Kirkwood, your father co-signed the initial illegal loans. He says Harlan got cold feet later, threatened to expose everything, and had to be managed. Garrett felt the blood drain from his face. He looked at his father, who sat pale and confused. This was one of his bad days, comprehension flickering in and out like a faulty light. Dad, Garrett said gently, the early days with Donovan, the first loans, do you remember? Harlan's eyes struggled to focus. Loans we needed capital. The banks wouldn't. Donovan knew people, said it was standard practice. What kind of people? Agent Santos leaned forward. I can't. Harlan's frustration was palpable. It's all foggy, but I remember being uncomfortable. Donovan said I was being naive. Ainsley intervened. His condition makes recall unreliable. Surely you can't base an investigation on... We have documents, Santos interrupted, co-signed by both Kirkwood and your father. If authenticated, they implicate Harlan in money laundering for organized crime figures. The room spun. Everything they'd fought for, the narrative of Harlan as innocent victim, suddenly teetered on a knife's edge. I want to see these documents, Garrett demanded. Santos nodded to her team. Within minutes, copies were spread across the conference table. The signatures looked authentic, the dates corresponding to the company's early struggles. These could be forgeries, Meredith said. Donovan's already admitted to forging Dad's signature before. Our experts don't think so. The ink paper and writing pressure analysis suggest these are originals from the 1980s. Garrett studied his father's younger signature, his mind racing. Then he noticed something. Wait, look at this date, October 15th, 1987. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through digital archives. Dad, that's the day Bryn was born. You were at the hospital. Mom had complications, remember? You didn't leave her side for 3 days. A spark of clarity lit Harlan's eyes. The emergency section. Yes, I remember. I couldn't have signed anything that day. Hospital records can confirm, that Ainsley added. If he was with Mom, these documents have to be forgeries. Santos made a note. We'll verify, but Kirkwood claims there were multiple occasions. Then we verify them all, Garrett said firmly. Every date, every signature. 30 years of records, if we have to. The next 2 weeks became a blur of investigation. The family divided tasks. Garrett handled business records. Bryn tracked down former employees. Meredith researched contemporaneous events, and Ainsley managed Harlan's medical history. They cross-referenced every suspicious document with family. Calendars, photo albums, and witness testimonies. Patterns emerged. Documents were allegedly signed during family crises, births, illnesses, deaths. Times when Harlan's attention was elsewhere, his absence from the office verifiable. He's clever, Patricia Havisham observed during a late-night strategy session. Used emotional chaos as cover. Who questions a signature's date when the signer was dealing with personal tragedy? But Donovan had made one crucial error he'd gotten, greedy with his forgeries. Too many documents, too many convenient crisis moments. The pattern itself became evidence of fraud. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Eleanor Kirkwood arrived at the office with a box of old videotapes. Donovan was paranoid, she explained. Recorded business meetings secretly. Called it insurance. I kept copies during our divorce. The tapes revealed gold, meeting after meeting where Donovan discussed forging documents, manipulating dates, creating false paper trails. In one crucial recording, he actually demonstrated Harlan's signature to an associate. See, the key is the way he loops his H. Practice that, and the rest flows naturally. Agent Santos watched the recordings with growing satisfaction. This changes everything. Kirkwood's not a whistleblower, he's trying to frame your father to muddy the waters. Relief flooded the room, but Garrett felt something else, a cold fury at how close they'd come to losing everything again. He's still playing games, Garrett said. Even facing life in prison, he's trying to destroy us. It's all he knows, Harlan said softly, experiencing a moment of painful clarity. I've been thinking about the early days. He was always transactional. Every relationship had to benefit him somehow. When I started questioning his methods, I became a liability instead of an asset. But why such hatred? Ainsley asked. Why pursue this vendetta for 30 years? Because I chose you, Harlan replied, looking at his children. I chose family over fortune. In his world, that was the ultimate betrayal, proof that everything he believed was wrong. The FBI's investigation pivoted. Instead of investigating Harlan, they focused on Donovan's attempt to falsify evidence from prison. New charges were added: witness tampering, evidence fabrication, conspiracy to commit perjury. But the emotional toll was severe. The family struggled with the realization that Donovan's evil ran deeper than they'd imagined. He wasn't just corrupt, he was pathologically determined to destroy them. I need to see him, Garrett announced one evening. In prison, face to face. Absolutely not, Bryn protested. That's what he wants, one last chance to hurt you. Maybe, but I need closure, we all do. After heated debate, they reached a compromise. Garrett would go, but not alone. The entire family would confront Donovan together. The federal prison was a fortress of concrete and razor wire. Inside, sterile corridors led to a secure meeting room where Donovan waited, shackled, but still projecting arrogance. He'd aged dramatically. Prison. Gray replaced his salon-perfect hair, expensive suits, traded for orange jumpsuits. But his eyes remained cold, calculating. The whole family, he observed. How touching. Come to gloat. To understand, Garrett corrected. Why the forgeries? Why try to destroy Dad even now? Donovan leaned back, a snake savoring its moment. Destroy him? I was trying to save you all. Show you the truth about your precious father. By manufacturing evidence, by revealing his weakness, he could have been great, could have built an empire. Instead, he chose mediocrity. Chose you. That's not weakness, Harlan spoke with surprising strength. That's love, something you never understood. Love. Donovan laughed bitterly. Love is just fear dressed up pretty, fear of being alone, fear of judgment, fear of insignificance. I chose power instead, real, tangible power. And where did it get you? Meredith asked quietly. Donovan's mask slipped. For a moment, raw pain flickered across his face before the armor slammed back into place. Further than love ever got anyone. Did it? Ainsley challenged. We're free. You're in chains. We have each other. You have no one. Who really... One Mr. Kirkwood? The question hung in the air. Donovan searched for a cutting response, his mouth opening and closing. Finally, he deflated. Get out, he whispered. Just get out. As they left, Garrett turned back one last time. Donovan sat alone, staring at his shackled hands. The man who'd orchestrated 30 years of pain looked small, defeated, utterly alone. Outside, the family stood in the prison parking lot, breathing free air. It's really over, Bryn said wonderingly. The legal part, Garrett agreed. The emotional part, that'll take longer. But we'll heal, Harlan said, his children supporting him on either side. Together, the way families do. They drove home as the sun set over Puget Sound, painting the water gold and crimson. In the distance, Seattle's skyline beckoned, a city of second chances, rebuilt dreams and families that refused to stay broken. Behind them in a concrete cell, Donovan Kirkwood sat alone with his choices, finally understanding the price of choosing power over love. It was a lesson learned too late in a prison of his own making, with no one left to care about his regrets. The Whitmores, scarred but whole, drove toward tomorrow, together. The conference room at the Seattle Ritz-Carlton hummed with tension. Garrett had chosen neutral ground for this meeting. Not his office, not the construction site, but a place where past and future could intersect without the weight of either. Assembled around the mahogany table were representatives of every family Donovan had destroyed over 3 decades. The Hendersons, the Chens, the Washingtons, the Paters, 23 families in total, each nursing wounds inflicted by the same man. Thank you for coming, Garrett began, standing at the head of the table. I know some of you traveled far to be here. We almost didn't come, Robert Henderson admitted, his weathered face hard. Your family benefited from our destruction. Why should we trust you now? Because we're not here to defend what happened, Bryn interjected. We're here to make it right. Murmurs rippled through the room. Sarah Chen, whose family's import business had collapsed in 1999, leaned forward. How can you give us back 20 years, restore my father's health after the stress-induced heart attack, bring back my brother who overdosed after we lost everything? The raw pain in her voice cut through any pretense. These weren't just business casualties. These were human lives shattered by greed. Harlan struggled to his feet, Ainsley steadying him. I can't undo the past, he said, voice trembling. I failed you all by not stopping Donovan sooner, by running, instead of fighting. Your suffering haunts me, but maybe together we can build something from the ashes. Build what? Demanded Marcus Washington. Your son's company thrived while ours died. You want us to just forgive and forget? No, Garrett said firmly. We want to repair and restore. Here's our proposal. He activated a presentation screen. Financial projections, legal documents, and architectural plans filled the display. The Restoration Initiative, using recovered assets from Donovan's seized accounts, nearly $200 million, we're creating a fund. Not charity, not handouts, but restoration of what was stolen with interest. Business revivals, educational trusts, medical debt forgiveness. Whatever each family needs to rebuild. Silence gripped the room. The scope was staggering. Additionally, Meredith added, West Coast Construction will reserve 50% of all contracts for businesses owned by affected families. Preferential rates, mentorship programs, shared resources. We succeed together or not at all. And oversight, asked. Patricia Paters, ever the lawyer, despite her family's own losses. Who ensures this isn't just another manipulation? An independent board, Ainsley explained. Representatives from each family rotating leadership, complete transparency. The Whitmores will have one vote among many. Arguments erupted. Some called it too little, others suspected a trap. Old wounds bled fresh as families confronted their shared trauma. Then Evelyn Henderson Roberts' elderly mother spoke for the first time. My husband died thinking he was a failure. 30 years of marriage, and his last words were apologizing for losing our business. Do you understand that weight? Her words silenced the room. Harlan met her eyes, his own filled with tears. Yes, he whispered. I understand perfectly. I've carried the same weight, the same shame. It's crushing. Something passed between them, recognition of shared suffering. Evelyn nodded slowly. Then let's put it down, she said. All of us. The anger, the shame, the what-ifs. Let's build something new. One by one, families began to engage with the proposal. Questions shifted from why should we trust you to how do we make this work? By evening, the framework of an unprecedented collaboration had emerged, but the emotional climax came when young Jamie Washington stood up. At 18, he was the youngest attendee born after his family's business collapsed. I've hated the name Whitmore my entire life, he said, voice cracking. It represented everything that went wrong for my family. But sitting here watching you, all take responsibility. Maybe it's time to let that hate go. Maybe it's time to build instead of blame. His words broke the last dam. Tears flowed freely as families shared stories, acknowledged pain, and began the delicate work of forgiveness, not forgetting but choosing to move forward. As the meeting concluded, documents signed and hands shaken, Garrett found himself face to face with Sarah Chen. My father would have appreciated this, she said softly. He always believed in second chances, even for his enemies. Were we enemies? Garrett asked. You were symbols of our loss, but symbols can change meaning. Today, you became something else. What? Partners, in the truest sense. Outside, Seattle's evening light painted the sound in shades of hope. The Whitmore family stood together, exhausted but lighter somehow. Think it will work? Ainsley asked. It has to, Garrett replied. We've all carried this weight too long. Mom would be proud, Meredith observed. This is what she always taught us. When you break something, you fix it. Even if it takes 30 years. Harlan gazed at the water, his mind clearer than it had been in weeks. I spent 3 decades running from my mistakes, hiding from the people I hurt. Today I finally stopped running. We all did, Bryn added, putting her arm around their father. Now we build together. As they prepared to leave, Garrett's phone buzzed. A message from Robert Henderson. Thank you. For the first time in 20 years, I have hope. Let's make this work. Similar messages flooded in over the following hours. Families choosing hope over hate, collaboration over conflict. The road ahead would be complex, fraught with challenges and setbacks. Trust would need to be earned, daily old wounds would ache during storms. But something fundamental had shifted. The shadow of Donovan Kirkwood's legacy, division, destruction, and greed, was being replaced by its opposite, unity, restoration, and a radical experiment in making things right. That night, the Whitmores gathered for their weekly dinner. The conversation was lighter somehow, freed from the weight of unaddressed wrongs. I've been thinking about legacy, Harlan mused over dessert. Donovan was obsessed with building a legacy of power. But real legacy isn't what you build, it's what you repair, what you heal. To healing, Garrett raised his glass. To repair, added Bryn. To second chances, Meredith continued. To family, all of them, Ainsley said, thinking of the 23. Families now bound to theirs. To your mother, Harlan finished, who always knew love builds stronger foundations than fear. They clinked glasses as outside the city sparkled with possibility. Somewhere in a federal prison, Donovan Kirkwood sat alone with his choices. But in this warm room surrounded by laughter and love, the Whitmores were finally free. Free to build, free to heal, free to prove that sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's restoration. Tomorrow would bring the hard work of implementation, legal challenges, financial complexities, interpersonal dynamics that would test every good intention. But tonight, they had something more valuable than any contract or bank balance. They had each other. They had purpose. And they had a community of former enemies becoming allies, choosing to write a different ending to a 30-year tragedy. In the end, that's what family really meant. Not just blood relations, but the wider human family. The recognition that we rise or fall together, that every wound demands healing and that love, not power, is the only foundation that lasts. The reckoning had come, and with it the possibility of redemption. 1 year later, the Nadine Whitmore Center hummed with life. Children's laughter echoed from the playground while seniors practiced Tai Chi in the courtyard garden. Inside counseling, sessions, job training, workshops, and community meetings filled every room. The address that once held painful memories had become a beacon of hope. Garrett stood in what used to be their family living room, now transformed into a community library. Sunlight streamed through tall windows as he watched his father read to a group of preschoolers, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "He has more good days now," Ainsley observed, joining him. "Being useful helps." "Being loved helps more," Garrett replied. "Speaking of which," he gestured toward the courtyard, where Bryn led a yoga class for stressed single parents, while Meredith guided teenagers through a collaborative mural project. The wall already showed the outline of a massive tree, its roots and branches intertwining with images of the neighborhood's history. "Full house today," Margaret Chen noted, approaching with her clipboard. She'd left Evergreen Care to become the center's director. The Henderson's youth program starts at 3, and the Washington's financial literacy workshop has a waiting list. The transformation was remarkable. Each affected family had contributed their expertise, creating a web of support services that served the entire community. Former enemies had become partners in Seattle's most ambitious social experiment. "Any word from the Times?" Ainsley asked. "Front page tomorrow," Garrett confirmed. "From ruin to renewal, how 23 families turned tragedy into triumph. They're calling it the Seattle Miracle." "Hardly miraculous," Margaret laughed. "Just hard work and stubbornness, very stubborn people refusing to stay broken." Through the window, they watched Harlan finish his story. The children clapped enthusiastically before scampering off to their next activity. He remained seated, a peaceful smile on his weathered face. "I should check on him," Ainsley said, but Garrett caught her arm. "Wait, look." A young boy had returned, clutching a drawing. He presented it shyly to Harlan, a crayon family portrait labeled, "My Grandpa Harry and Me." Harlan's eyes misted as he accepted the gift with trembling hands. "That's Tommy Chen," Ainsley whispered. "Sarah's nephew. His father struggled with depression after their business failed. Harlan's been mentoring him." "Healing comes in circles," Garrett mused. "Dad gets to be the grandfather figure he missed being. Tommy gets the stability his own grandfather couldn't provide. The cycle breaks." The afternoon sun slanted through the windows as the center's activities continued. In the computer lab, Patricia Havisham taught coding to unemployed adults. The kitchen hosted a cooking class for elderly residents living alone. Every corner buzzed with purpose. "Sometimes I can't believe it's real," Bryn said later, joining her siblings for coffee in the staff room. "A year ago, we were in that courtroom. Everything falling apart. Now we're exactly where Mum always hoped we'd be," Meredith finished. "Using our privileges to lift others, building community instead of walls." A knock interrupted them. Sarah Chen entered, her face glowing with excitement. "The Vancouver group approved our proposal," she announced. "They want to replicate the Seattle model. 3 cities to start: Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles. They're calling it the Whitmore Initiative." Garrett nearly choked on his coffee. The Whitmore Initiative after everything. "Names can be redeemed," Sarah smiled. "You've proven that," besides, Harlan insisted. Said it was time the name stood for healing instead of hurt. Through the open door, they could see their father in the courtyard, now playing chess with Robert Henderson. Former enemies, now friends, bonding over shared redemption. "He's different," Ainsley observed. "The guilt is lighter, not gone but manageable." "We're all different," Bryn reflected. "Softer in some ways, stronger in others, like metal that's been through fire, reshaped but more resilient." The conversation was interrupted by Garrett's phone. The caller ID showed the Federal Detention Center. "Mr. Whitmore." The warden's voice was somber. "I'm calling about Donovan Kirkwood. He suffered a massive heart attack this morning. He's in critical condition, and he's asking for you." The siblings exchanged glances. "After everything, Donovan," still reached out to them in his darkest hour. "We don't owe him anything," Meredith said flatly. "No," Harlan's voice came from the doorway. He'd entered unnoticed, his chess game concluded. "We don't owe him, but we owe ourselves the chance to close this chapter properly." 2 hours later, Garrett and Harlan sat in the prison hospital ward. Donovan lay connected to machines, his powerful frame diminished, his face grey. His eyes, however, remained alert. "Come to watch me die," he whispered, voice barely audible. "Come to offer what you never gave us," Harlan replied, "a chance to make peace." Donovan's laugh turned into a cough. "Peace after everything." "Especially after everything," Garrett said. "Hate is exhausting, Donovan. We're tired of carrying it." Something shifted in Donovan's expression, a crack in armor worn too long. "I've been alone," he admitted. So alone. Even surrounded by lawyers, inmates, guards, the loneliness is crushing. "You chose that," Harlan said gently. "Every day you chose power over connection, control over love." "I know." Tears leaked from Donovan's eyes. "I know, and I can't undo it. Can't take back 30 years of wrong choices, but I need you to know, and I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry." The words hung in the antiseptic air. Garrett studied the man who'd shaped his life through manipulation and pain, now reduced to a failing body, and desperate regrets. "We forgive you," Garrett said finally. "Not for you, for us. We're building something beautiful from the ashes you created. Your legacy won't be destruction. It'll be the catalyst for healing you never imagined possible." Donovan closed his eyes. "The families I destroyed, the business program at the center, I heard about it. In here news travels. They're thriving. They're healing," Harlan corrected. "We all are. Even you, perhaps, in these final moments. I wish..." Donovan's voice faded, then strengthened. "I wish I'd understood earlier. What really mattered. What I threw away for numbers in accounts I can't even access now. Understanding now is something," Garrett offered. "Late, but something." They sat in silence as monitors beeped rhythmically. Finally, Donovan spoke again. "Tell them, tell all of them. I was wrong about everything. Family isn't weakness. Love isn't vulnerability. They're the only real strength, the only legacy that matters." His eyes closed, breathing labored but steady. Garrett and Harlan rose to leave. "Wait," Donovan gasped. "Harlan, old friend, will you stay just until..." Harlan looked at his son, then back at the man who'd caused so much pain. He sat back down, taking Donovan's hand. "I'll stay," he said simply. "No one should die alone, not even you." Garrett squeezed his father's shoulder and left them there, 2 old men at the end of a long, twisted road, finding grace in the final moments. Donovan Kirkwood died at sunset, holding the hand of the man he'd betrayed, offered forgiveness he'd never thought possible. The news reached the Whitmore Center as the evening programs wound down. The family gathered in the library, their old living room, processing the complex emotions of an enemy's passing. "He found peace at the end," Harlan shared. "Understanding, regret, but peace." "Does it change anything?" Bryn asked. "Everything and nothing," Garrett replied. "He's gone, but what we've built remains. What we're building continues." Through the windows they watched the center's lights twinkle in the gathering darkness. Families heading home after classes, volunteers cleaning up, security guards beginning their rounds. A community born from betrayal, thriving through forgiveness. "I've made a decision," Harlan announced suddenly. "My good days are fewer now. The fog comes more often. But while I can, I want to document everything. The real story, not just Donovan's crimes, but the whole truth. My failures, our struggles, and how we found our way back to each other." "A memoir?" Meredith asked. "A cautionary tale and a hope manual. For families torn apart by secrets, by shame, by circumstances beyond their control. If we can heal, anyone can." "I'll help," Ainsley offered. "Medical perspective on trauma and recovery." "We all will," Garrett added. "Different chapters, different viewpoints. The full picture." They spent the evening planning, remembering, and occasionally laughing at absurdities that only made sense in hindsight. As midnight approached, they prepared to leave. "One last thing," Harlan said, pulling out a worn envelope. I've carried this for 30 years, never had the courage to open it. The envelope was addressed to him in Nadine's handwriting, postmarked the day before she died. With shaking hands, he opened it. Inside was a single page, his wife's final words to him. My dearest Harlan, if you're reading this, I'm gone. But you're here, and that means there's still hope. I know you carry guilt about leaving us. I know you think I died hating you. Neither is true. I knew something forced you away. Call it intuition, call it love. I knew you didn't choose to leave. Find our children, tell them the truth. They're strong enough to handle it, to forgive. Build something beautiful together. That's all I ever wanted. My family whole, my loves at peace. You are forgiven. You were always forgiven. Now forgive yourself. All my love forever, Nadine. The letter passed from hand to hand, tears flowing freely. Nadine had known. Somehow she'd known. And she'd spent her final hours ensuring her husband would find his way home. She gave us this, Harlan whispered, gesturing around the center. Her faith, her forgiveness, her stubborn belief in second chances were living her dream. As they finally headed to their cars, Meredith pointed to her mural wall now lit by streetlights. The tree was nearly complete, its branches reaching skyward, roots deep and strong. At its base, barely visible in the dimness, was a small plaque in memory of Nadine Whitmore, who taught us that love builds the strongest foundations. Home, Harlan said softly, looking back at the building that had once housed their broken family. We finally came home. No, Dad, Garrett corrected, his arms around his father's shoulders. We finally built one. Together. The Seattle night embraced them as they departed each to their own houses, but no longer to separate lives. Behind them, the Nadine Whitmore Center stood as testament to a simple truth. Sometimes the longest journey isn't about distance traveled, but about the courage to stop running and start healing. In the end, the Whitmores had discovered what Donovan never understood, that real power isn't in controlling others, but in lifting them up. Real wealth isn't in bank accounts, but in relationships restored. And real legacy isn't in buildings that bear your name, but in lives transformed by your choices. They had broken, they had scattered, they had suffered, but they had also rebuilt, reunited, and triumphed. The bonds they broke had been replaced by bonds they chose, stronger, deeper, and unbreakable. Love, it turned out, was the best revenge, and forgiveness the greatest victory of all. As the last car pulled away from the center, a light rain began to fall. Seattle's benediction on a family reborn, a community restored, and a future bright with promise. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, fresh opportunities to serve, and continued growth. But tonight the Whitmores rested in the knowledge that they had truly come home, not to a place but to each other, and that, as Nadine had always known, made all the difference.